Abolishing English as its official language, Pakistan encourages the nation to speak Urdu. A cultural and nationalist revival or a breakdown in communication? And how does this translate around the world? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Rochelle Carey. English is acknowledged as the international language of the modern era. It's used in business, trade, industry, and global communication. On the downside, critics argue the spread of English has also contributed to the demise of lesser-known languages and undermines some countries' cultural dynamics. Take Pakistan, for example. After almost 70 years of independence from Britain, the government wants to abolish English as its official language and grant that status to Urdu. Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is backing this move, which would mean everything official from government business to passports. Utility bills and websites will all be in Urdu, and all speeches made at home and abroad from the president down to government employees will also be conducted in Urdu. The plan is to completely replace English with Urdu within the next 10 to 15 years. It follows concerns that many young Pakistanis are shunning their national dress and language to adopt a more Western point of view. Al Jazeera's Kamal Haider has more on this story for Inside Story from Islamabad.
If you visit a bookshop in Pakistan, you will be able to find hundreds of books in English, but they will always be outnumbered by books in Urdu, which is also the country's official language. However, over the years, it has lost some of its relevance because most of the work has been replaced by the English language. Now, the country's cabinet has taken a decision that will ensure that Urdu is restored as the main official language of the country without any confusion. The court has also been taking interest in this matter and asked the government official as to explain as to what steps the government had taken to ensure that Urdu is restored as the country's official language. The court was told that from now on, all heads of state visiting outside Pakistan will address in Urdu, that official work will be conducted in Urdu, circulars will be issued in that language, that there will be translations as well. So a major step underway in order to revive this very rich language here in Pakistan. This is Kamal Haider for Inside Story in Islamabad.
Let's bring in our panel now. Joining us from Islamabad is Javed Siddique, resident editor at Nawawak, the leading Urdu newspaper in Pakistan. In London, we have Mandana Sefadinapur, director of the Endangered Languages Documentation Program at the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. And completing our panel is Olga Fischer, a professor of English linguistics at the University of Amsterdam. And welcome to all of you for this conversation. Javed, I'd like to start with you. What is really the genesis of this movement?
In fact, the 1973 Constitution, which was framed in 1973, it provided that the Pakistan's official language will be Urdu. Article 251 of the Constitution of Pakistan provides that in 15 years' time, starting from 1973, the language will be Urdu language all over, and the official language and official business would be conducted in Urdu. So by that standard, in 1988, the entire government business should have been in Urdu language, but that did not happen. English prevailed and government communication and government business continued in English language. But recently, two prominent lawyers from Islamabad, they filed a petition before the Supreme Court of Pakistan that why the government of Pakistan has failed to implement this important provision of the Constitution and why Urdu has not been adopted as a national language, and why Urdu is not being used in government communication, in letters and speeches made and written by the government officials. So on 10th of July, the government responded to this petition in the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and the Attorney General and also the Secretary Information of the Government of Pakistan assured the court that the Prime Minister has signed a summary under which the Urdu language is to be replaced, English would be replaced by the Urdu language. And from now on, Urdu will be the official language. The Prime Minister, the President, and all the ministers would speak and deliver their speeches in Urdu, and their English version would also be provided.
Javed, how popular is this?
It has been assured. Pardon me?
How popular is this push to replace English? How popular is this movement?
It's very popular because the common people of Pakistan, they speak Urdu and they understand Urdu. And in the most of the public schools, which are run by the government of Pakistan, Urdu is the medium of the education, is the medium of instruction. So people are very happy that Urdu will be, English will be replaced by Urdu, and it will be our national language. But I think the reluctance comes from the top. The bureaucrats in the various ministries of government of Pakistan, the Foreign Office, even the military, is not prepared to replace English with Urdu for the time being. So it will be difficult for the official work to be translated into Urdu language. So a lot of efforts have to be made before we just replace English by the national language Urdu. But however, this move has been hugely supported at the public level and in the teaching institutions as well. They are supporting this move because, the Urdu newspapers, Urdu journals, and Urdu books are widely read in Pakistan.
Okay.
So therefore, this move by,
So it's a popular movement. If I could just interrupt for just a moment, I wanted to bring Olga Fisher into this. Olga, could you give us a bit of a brief history lesson, if possible? I think that many people would be surprised to know how dominant English is in Pakistan. How did that come to be?
Well, formerly there were many colonies. England had many colonies, and in these colonies, the officials spoke English, and so other people who had to deal with the officials would speak English as well. One of the problems in many of these colonies is that there were so many native language, for instance, in India or Nigeria, where I think there are as many as 200 native languages, that when these countries become independent, it's often English that is understood by most people. Although it's not their native language.
So in some ways, English
as well, but they don't speak the other native language.
So in some ways, it unifies people.
English came to be. Well, I don't know where it would unify them. I think it's more a practical matter, because I can understand at the same time that from a national point of view, from a national feeling, that people would often be against English. But from a practical point of view, English was often very useful.
Right, and that is in fact what I mean by unifying, is at least it was a way that people could communicate, whether they were pleased with the fact that it was English or not.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. So have you seen, and Dana, let me bring you into...
Maybe they weren't pleased, but yeah.
Yes. And Dan, if I can bring you into this, have you seen this push? Is this happening in other countries to push English a bit to the side and embrace the another national language, the native language?
Well, let me first start with saying, this is a larger issue that we are observing in general, namely the decline of languages all over the world. We believe that today there's about 7,000 languages spoken in the world, and by the end of this century, half of these languages will have fallen silent, and this goes across the entire world.
Why is that happening?
Well, these are the effects of globalization and climate change, right? So people give up their traditional ways of life to gain economic and social mobility. They move to cities, for example, and, want to give their children the opportunity to, have access to education and for a better life. And so they don't teach their children their languages anymore. And so within a short amount of time, only the elders speak the language and the minority language goes away. And we're observing this. It is a normal process for languages to shift and change. This is the beauty of languages. This is the amazing feature of what the human mind can do. However, the development we are seeing now, we estimate to be on a really accelerated scale. And these languages going away, many of these languages have never been recorded, and we don't even know what is encoded in these languages, and they are an expression of our cultural heritage, and this is happening. So we're losing our cultural heritage and our linguistic diversity without a trace. Now, there are
I actually have some numbers.
places in.
I have some numbers to complement what you're saying. If you could just give me just one moment, it's really interesting. You know, you can be heard, but does that mean that people actually understand you, right? That's a challenge within and between countries. So let's look at some of these numbers. It's estimated that there are up to 7,000 languages still spoken in the world today. More than 2,000 can be found in Asia, while Europe has about 260. Around a quarter of the world's languages are spoken by fewer than 1,000 people. And the UN cultural body UNESCO has identified 2,500 languages it considers are at risk of extinction. And Dan, I saw you nodding as I was reading that. Did you want to pick up on that?
Yes, these are numbers that are floating around, and this is the disaster we are watching. The issue that we are picking up on, namely that one language would unify, the issue is that it's not about one language for another. The main issue is to be multilingual, namely to be able to speak a number of languages that makes you more versatile. So we observe that people are giving up their languages, so you know, languages don't suffer from some obscure disease. It's speakers that give up their languages as an active actor, and it's also these speakers that, when given the utility for the languages, will maintain their languages and will maintain their cultural wealth. And this is the structure that needs to be provided. So it's not one for the other that will help us here, but it's, you know, additive multilingualism, namely speaking multiple languages will make you smarter and will make you more versatile in the environment that we're surviving. It's also not only a matter of English. We see the same thing in South America with Spanish, in China with Chinese, in many other places with majority languages, which could be Wolof or Swahili.
Javed, how do you think that this movement is going to go over? To Mandana's point, it's about not necessarily speaking one language. It's about being able to speak as many languages as possible. Do you think that the younger generations are going to embrace this?
Yes, I think the younger generation has its reservations about the decision of the Supreme Court, because the younger generation, especially those who are getting education in private institutions in Pakistan, they are taught in English language. And the younger people who are educated in modern institutions and universities and other schools and colleges, they prefer to speak English, write in English, and therefore they have a reluctance to embrace and accept this decision of the government. Although the government was not very keen to do it and to replace English as a communication between the government offices and the provincial and central government in Urdu, they wanted to continue in English language. But after the Supreme Court direction, the Prime Minister has committed that he and his colleagues in the cabinet, the President and the Chief Ministers of the provinces, they will deliver their speeches in English. All the communications between the provinces and the federal government will be done in English language. So that's the decision which the government has made. The cabinet has approved it. But the people, younger people who have been educated abroad, outside Pakistan, they are engineers and doctors, and they have other skills, and they have come back to Pakistan. They are very fluent in English language. They write, speak English language. So they have a reluctance for accepting this decision. However, the local people, the local population, which is getting education in local schools, the medium of instruction is Urdu. They are quite happy with it. But I think the burgeoning, swelling number of younger people, the youth in Pakistan, still wants to continue writing in English, communicating with each other in English language.
So, Olga, could you tell me why is it that certain languages are considered more prestigious than others, and does race play a role in that?
Well, of course, English is not a better language than any other language, and it is a historical accident that English became a world language, which has to do, of course, with the colonies, but also with events that happened before that. It could easily have been another language like French, and as you said, nowadays Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese are all very important. But language is a very sensitive thing. I always compare language to clothing. I mean, you have a certain feelings for it, and as the other interviewee also said, when you lose a language, you lose more than a language. You lose a national cultural heritage. So I can understand on the one hand that they would very much like Urdu as a national language because it would make more of a unity of Pakistan. On the other hand, I don't think even if English is no longer an official language, it will still be used. You can't stop people from using it, and I can see the same in the Netherlands. English is used at universities a lot. You can't stop it. At the same time, of course, we try to keep Dutch there as well. I think that it will not disappear, but it's sensitive. People are very sensitive about that.
One of the dilemmas in trying to maintain a national identity in the face of increasing globalization is that English is at the heart of what happens in so many parts of the world. It is often considered the language of diplomacy. For example, the Iranian nuclear negotiations this week were all conducted in English. It has become the established language of international business and finance, and increasingly the language of global news, with many non-speaking English countries hosting TV networks or newspapers in English, such as this channel here in Qatar. The world's most important academic research is mainly produced in English. And in aviation, pilots and air traffic controllers are required to speak good English no matter what part of the world they're in. Mandana, when I put that in perspective, how English is so dominant, I guess one can understand why a parent would want their child to speak English. But could you explain the conflict that some parents have about wanting their children to speak English to maybe have whatever advantages that may bring with them, but then maybe perhaps shunning their native language so that they're not bilingual?
Well, there's a strong folk myth around, namely, if you teach a child more than one language, then the child won't learn any of them right. So despite the fact that there is a lot of research showing that children can learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 languages perfectly well, side by side, and that you have cognitive advantages. Multilinguals are more agile, are not better in making decisions, they're quicker. Parents still think they have to go for either or. And of course, as a parent, if you think, well, if this child speaks this language versus English, it's English that's going to give the child access to education. So we don't want to confuse them with the other language. And so they force the child into English and try to maintain that at home to give the child the advantages. And it has to do with the idea that if you have multiple languages at home, children get confused. One of the things I always say is, imagine you give a child a ball and a block and a square, and another child only gets a ball. Which child will be more versatile in recognizing and playing with these figures? Because that's as simple as it is. You know, if the brain is exposed to different kinds of input, it will be stronger and it will be more dynamic. And this is something that still holds in the mind of a lot of people, this idea and imperative of one language in the right way and not multiple languages in the right way.
I think anyone who's tried to learn a second language as an adult could perhaps answer this, but I'd still appreciate your insight on this, Mandana. How much more difficult is it to decide as an adult to go and learn a second language as opposed to having been raised speaking multiple languages?
Well, you know, I mean, as you know, like the brain, the younger you are, your brain is very plastic and can change. And the older you get, the more difficult it gets. So some people are more apt to learning languages. Others are not as apt. However, you know, it's exposing yourself to new ways of thinking and to new ways of looking at the world and reading that will keep your brain strengthens. We know from research that, for example, Alzheimer's sets in 4 years later in bilinguals. So even that, speaking more languages and even learning languages late will protect you from other diseases because you're basically, you know, training your brain. And that allows you to, you know, keep it more fit and active.
That's fascinating. Javed, so the time horizon for this, for pushing Urdu more, is 10 to 15 years. So how do you see that actually playing out in Pakistan?
I think we have to see to it how the government implements this commitment which it has made to the Supreme Court of Pakistan. It will be very difficult for the government to implement it because replacing the English language from the government departments, from the military, from other power centers in the government, from the educational institutions, especially I would say that the civil services of Pakistan, where the examination is conducted in English language, and the elite service of Pakistan is civil service, which is running the country, which is providing the administrative apparatus to Pakistan. That will be very difficult to replace the language of examination for the superior services in Pakistan by Urdu. So it will be difficult, although the government has committed that it is going to take steps very soon and will be implemented, and the Prime Minister says that he would deliver his next speech in Urdu. The President said that he would be delivering his speeches in Urdu, even if they are abroad outside Pakistan, in the United States or Europe, they will be delivering their speeches in Urdu, which will be translated into English and other languages as well. But doing it practically, it looks to be quite a job. It's difficult for the people to do it. And also, I think I would say that a lot of reluctance and resistance will come from civil service, from the Foreign Office, from the military and other institutions who are interacting with international institutions, the scientific institutions, the universities, the research people who are conducting research in English, and they are receiving a lot of stuff to research on here in Pakistan. So their communication will be disturbed. So I think the government will be in real difficulty.
So it's quite a transition.
As far as the implementation of this commitment.
It's quite a transition.
Yes, it will be very difficult for them.
Okay. Olga, we've been talking so much about how global English is, and what other language out there is the world, the next language that the world will embrace, as you see it?
Well, some would say Spanish, others would say Chinese. The problem with Chinese, of course, is that there are many different Chinese languages. There's Mandarin, there's others. It all, I think, depends also on the economy. Because one of the reasons why English is so strong is because English is spoken in the United States, had a very strong economy. So you can't really predict for the future.
All right, but I guess the bottom line that probably everyone on our panel could agree on is that it's a benefit to learn and to speak as many languages as possible. I found it fascinating what you said, Mandana, about...
I completely agree with that. I completely agree that it's very important to speak more than one language, to learn as early as possible. It helps you enormously. It makes you sensitive to other things because the languages also, in a way, shape a little bit the way you think. Now, this is perhaps this Sapir-Whorf idea is a little bit too strong, but it's true in certain ways that you see things differently because you speak a particular language. So I think it's very important for our culture and versatility and variability that we keep the other languages as well.
And thank you all to my panel for joining us for this wonderful discussion. Javed Siddique in Islamabad, Mandana Sefandinapur in London, and Olga Fischer in Amsterdam. And thank you for watching. As always, we welcome your thoughts. You can get in touch with us on our program page at aljazeera.com. Post your comments on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or tweet us using AJ Inside Story. For me, Rochelle Carey, and the entire team here, goodbye for now.